This is the 3.5 teaching point and mini lesson. Our teaching point today is that you will be skilled at representing proportional relationships with equations. Again, you're going to see a lot of connections back to chapter 2. So we have a boxes and bullets that we're going to do. So over here are the steps that are going to help me to be able to answer my questions. Now you may or may not need those steps, but they're there for you if you happen to need them. So it shows me, the table shows the price comparisons between Sendik's and Costco. So I see if I spend $2 at Sendik's, I would be spending $3 at Costco, $5 and $7.50 and so on. So first thing it tells me is to find the constant. As soon as I see that, I right away think it's a great idea for me to label my X and Y axis in my table. So this would be my X and this one would be my Y. And the other thing I think about is that K equals Y over X, and I know I have to check each ratio. So I think I'm just going to do that. Well, I'll just right here. So it's Y over X. I'm doing 3 over 2. And then I'm going to take the 750 over 5. And I'm going to do the 1050 over 7. And I'm going to do the 15 over 10. And when you divide these all out, you will see that we get 1.5 every single time. So I did get a constant. My constant equals 1.5. So there's my solution. Next thing it's asking me is, does Sendik's costs vary directly with Costco's costs? So this was a big term we had in chapter 2. And what I need to think about, if it varies directly, is it straight? Well, I just found a constant, so I know it's straight. So I can answer this by saying yes, because we had a constant. And then, but it's not good enough to be straight. It also has to go through the origin. Now, when I look at the table, I didn't give you the origin. So I'm going to look and see, would it make sense to have 0 and 0? So if I'm comparing spending 0 money at Costco, it would be 0 money at Sendik's as well. So this would make sense to go through the origin. So does this vary directly? Yes, it does. Because it's straight, we had a constant, and it would go through the origin. Backing up my table makes sense. Okay, next it wants me to define variables. So as soon as I see this, I'm going to stop and do it. It says just add it to the table. I'm going to use C for Costco, and I'm going to use S for Sendik's. And then it tells me to write an equation to represent the relationship between Sendik's cost and Costco's cost. Last time we did this, we set up a proportion. So I know I need to do this. It's a proportion. It says using K. K was 1.5. And I'm going to put a 1 under it to make it look like a fraction. And appropriate variables. So remember, I do these little tiny Y and X. Y is S, and X is C. So I first had to set up a proportion, and now I need to use means and extremes. 1S is just S equals 1.5C. Here's my equation. I already have a variable isolated. I'm done. Next, they want me to interpret the constant for this situation. So I have to use K. So I'm going to rewrite this again. K was 1.5, and I'm going to make it look like a fraction again. And again, I'm going to put this little Y and X, and then I'm looking up here and I see that Y is Sendik's, and I see that X is Costco, so I'm helping myself to get this. And I know that when I explain the constant in words, this for every was a big hint for me. So I'm going to start by saying for every, and I'm using the denominator again, $1 spent at Costco, I would spend $1.50. So now I have to add a 0 to make it look like money because 1.5 doesn't make sense for money. At Sendex. Okay, this is putting it in words. So exactly like what we did in chapter 2, lots of connections. Now they want us to find the cost at Sendex for an item that is $32 at Costco, and it says use your equation. Well, then I have to rewrite my equation. S equals 1.5C. $32 is at Costco. That's C. So I'm going to rewrite S equals 1.5. C comes out. 32 is going to go in instead. So now when I go to solve this, S equals, and I just have to use my calculator to multiply 1.5 times 32, and I get 48. But let's make sure that I interpret this. That means it would be $48 at Sendex. So if something costs 32 at Costco, it would have been 48 at Sendex. Okay, again, this one's similar. It says, what is the cost at Costco for an item that is $52.50 at Sendex? Use your equation. So if I have to use the equation, I'm going to rewrite it. S equals 1.5C. Now this $52.50 is Sendex. Has to go in place of S. So $52.50 equals 1.5C. Well, I need to isolate C, so I'm going to divide each side by 1.5. So if I take $52.50, divide it by 1.5, this gives me 35. I keep working down, equals 1.5 divided by 1.5 is 1C. I don't need to write the 1. But again, what does this mean? It means it would be $35 at C, Costco. There's my answer. So still a lot of connections to what we did in chapter 2.